Hello, friends, family, and keepers of the faith, to Blog 51, week ending the 12th of February 2023. And if you're sort of like keeping count and know that I've been doing a blog now, a week ending blog, should I say, with an episode number, this one being 51, you'll recognize that next week is a year of me doing these things. Now that'd be quite interesting, because what I'll probably do this week is sort of like just skim over the very first one, an intro, followed by an episode one the following day, all the way up to today, and see this warts and all, see what I look like, my demeanour, weight loss, weight gain, all of those things, to see just how things have changed in my life in a year. So stuff analytics and subscribers for a moment, which indicates growth and people are watching and all of that sort of stuff. This has been the experiment for me to see how things have progressed. So that's going to be an interesting one for me. But first of all, I just want to give an apology. And I don't expect any of the Robert results of calling this an apology and seeing my numbers go up. It's just that I will explain after the news why this one is going to be shorter, why there's less in it, because it's been a difficult week. But first of all, let's get the news out of the way. So we always talk about the war, don't we? Now, the news this week has all been about two subjects as far as I could see. So I didn't bother looking to see whether there have been many changes. But the big news story about the war was that President Zelensky visited Great Britain this week. Now, he addressed the whole of the Ministry of Parliament, plus a recording to us, thanking us for our help so far. But the underlying addressment was really to get jets. He needs the battle in the air coming sooner than we can possibly give. Now, I'll explain what I mean by that. During this address where he was talking about the jets that he needs, a lot of debates went on Radio 5 that I was listening to on my walks. It was all about really what are the problems with the request. Most of it is that NATO can't be seen to be giving much favoritism here. That's because the Ukraine never joined NATO. So where we've got other European nations, including Great Britain, all part of NATO, because this is a war between Russia and Ukraine is not protected by NATO, NATO can't be seen to be giving favoritism. Otherwise, Russia, who's part of the Warsaw Pact, would start a war that would be worldwide. Now, the other problem with getting jets is there is a cost to all of this, and there are particular jets that he's requesting. But not only is there a cost, but the training that's required for you to fly a jet is a bit of a steep curve compared to what we've given so far, tanks. Now, you can possibly train up somebody who's driven a tank before and get them very, very proficient in under a month. If they've never driven a tank before, obviously it's slightly longer. But a jet, that's a different thing altogether. And the particular type of jets that they're requesting are very, very high-tech jets. So what basically the debate has been about is that they think it's a good thing that the request has come in now, because it makes Russia think, oh my God, they're now starting to request jets, and we're not quite ready for that yet. But it means that we can start training people up without giving the Ukraines up, without actually giving them the jets. The other thing that's being considered as well is they have their own planes, but they haven't probably thought about modifying their planes to put our modern rockets on them, which means that we wouldn't need to train them and they'd be using modern tech weapons on their old style planes. Of course, the maneuverability would be different, but it wouldn't take so much training. So it was an interesting debate, and it took up pretty much all of this week from the moment that President Zelensky addressed us as a nation, thanking us. And of course, the next big story, and just before I move away, you know what my feelings are about the war. I just want it to end. But this week, that address and the debate was pretty involving, and I got quite involved in that. But I just want it to end. And the last story really that's and excuse the pun, shook us a little bit, is in Turkey and the earthquake. Now, shortly after my blog and on Monday, they had a couple of earthquakes and then a couple of aftershocks. There's been some horrible pictures on the news of the telling of this earthquake, and I looked yesterday at the death toll, and it's plus of 25,000 people dead. And when something like this happens, you know, tsunamis, earthquakes, etc., etc., you've got to feel, you know, you feel totally weak about it all. It's like, what can I do? Oh, it's so bad. Thinking of the families, all of that sort of stuff. And then, of course, later on, you know that you've got to hope that the registered charities are going to be able to help. Hopefully they've got enough money to do that. And you know we're going to be getting probably lots of more adverts about the people that need our help after this earthquake. So that's the news in a nutshell, because my thoughts are with those people. A horrible thing to happen. And I just wish them well, and I'm sure I'll do my pledging a little bit with money. I'll give a little bit. I'm sure my works will be doing the same, and we just hope for the best. And that really takes over the news altogether. And now we come to that apology that I was talking about. Yes, it's been a difficult week. It started off like many other weeks. I had my meeting on Monday. I ask where my chair is. My chair is coming, is what I am told. I ask if I can go into work on Wednesday. Wednesday is cleared for me to go. Blah, 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 blah. Everything's great. And then, even though I've requested that I'm informed that the chair is coming, it actually arrived Monday afternoon. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that blows going into work Wednesday, but how wonderful, I've got my chair at last. Of course, then you've got the how to get the chair out of the box. It was a huge box and a heavy thing, and you can't ask your mother to help you. She's, you know, in her 80s, and so you've got to do it yourself. So of course I tipped the box on its side, and, you know, very, very gently, I was very, very cautious that I opened the top up, took the flaps out so that the flaps were flat, and then slowly tilted the chair, the box, so that it was horizontal, and then pulled out using the neck the chair out of the box, which was a very, very simple thing to do. And then, of course, because there are grab handles on the chair, you can pull the chair straight up. Of course, what I didn't do was check to see if there was anything rattling in the box first, you know. But the box was incredibly battered. Sorry, now we've got a phone call, and do apologise for this. It's the actual landline, so I have no control over that. We'll just wait a moment. My mother, who I hopefully will pick it up. There we go. So where did I get to? Yes, so I got the chair out and pulled the polythene off, and of course there was a bang on the floor as I pulled the polythene off, and the chair arose broke. not only was it broken, what it was is the handle on the tops of the chair that you rest your arms on had totally sheared away, and it rattled. Um, but there was a snag in the chair where the seat is, and there were scratches where the arm was, which had sheared off. So of course I had to make a phone call to work and tell them the good news and the bad news. Good news, it's arrived. Bad news, it's broken. I then had to take photographs of it, sent that off, and on Wednesday I was told that a new chair would be arriving, and it should be next week. All good news. But during that meeting on Wednesday, just before I left, I was reminded of holidays. And you're not really thinking about holidays too much because you've been off work, and you're off work at the moment under something called a disability clause, because basically I'm waiting for this chair. But they found out after doing a count that not only did I carry holidays forward that needed to be taken up by July of this year, which is a separate count. There's the count of holidays that have been building up since I've been off work ill, and those need to be taken by the end of February. It's 30 odd days, and there aren't 30 days in February, and we're now 12 days in, so you can imagine what can we do about that. So I've got a meeting on Monday now to say what's going to happen about the holidays, because do apologise, it's the phone again. There we go, she picked up this time. Because I think it's slightly unfair that I have to use my holidays when I don't want to take them. I mean, I don't know about you, but unless you're going abroad, you don't want to take your holidays in February, but I'm going to lose them. The other thing is that I think to myself, why didn't work tell me about this earlier? Because where I was on half wages in December, I could have said I'll take that off as holiday, because rather than lose them, I'd rather have them as full money, for which they had to rectify at the end of January. So I'm hoping that they've come up on Monday when I have my meeting, that I'm going to be paid for the holiday, because I might take some time off this week if the chair arrives early, because it's my mother's birthday. My mother's called Valerie. She was born on Valentine's Day. That's how you can easily remember my mum's birthday. Valentine's Day. Very, very simple. Plus the chair hasn't arrived yet, and if it arrives on Monday, then I've got no problems by saying, right, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday I'll take as holiday, and I want you to pay me for the rest of the holiday, and I'll start on Monday next week. The reason for that as well is that now that the chair is here, I've been able to measure it up in this room, and there is a deficiency in regards to the monitor I'm looking at the moment. It needs to be slightly higher for when I move my laptop screen open. It covers part of the screen, and it's a golden opportunity for me to have another screen above this one, just like I've got to the left of me here. And so I bought a stand. That's going to arrive on Monday. But what I'm trying to say is this week is a golden opportunity now to get the working environment right for me, and then start lovely on Monday, or even earlier if I get it done quicker. We will see, but that's the apology, that all of that plus my mother's birthday and so forth has meant that I haven't really had time to do any topics, any prep, and therefore this might be a little bit shorter, but we'll see how it goes. We're 15 minutes in, so let's get cracking. Shout outs. As you know, I do my shout outs to all people that leave a comment for me, people that have taken their time out from doing what they need to do. They might be doing their own videos, they might be watching TV, spending time with loved ones, to leave a comment and say, hey Del, how are you? I mean, you've got to understand that that boosts my quality of life, which is not great. And so I just want to be a big thank you to these people that left a comment. They are Martroid, Carl Todd, Jambon,
Robert's Retro Gaming, Wee Bob Art, David's Retro Gaming played badly, Milky Swinbuckle. Now this is where I've already got panned in a comment about this because I destroyed the name and I still don't know how to pronounce it, so it's going to be destroyed again until I see a video where you pronounce your surname, and that is Magna Kozaraziak. Honestly, even phonetics and sounding this out doesn't help. Really doesn't. Sorry again, but you do make me smile because I'm absolutely useless. Colin Jones, Hyperfan, 20th Century Gaming, Doug Scullery, and Denny. Absolutely wonderful people. They've all either left a comment in one of the two videos that I've done this week, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. But it also means that with all that out the way, I can get to your questions. And like I've always said, the questions are mostly ones that I am reading just about now. There are very few that I read to prep about. When it comes to prep, it will probably just be reminding me of the titles that are out there, or the complexity of the question will tell me how much I need to do. And to be quite honest, I avoid the questions like the plague and try and watch them here. So the first one so I've got the comments up to the left of me here, is from Wee Bob Art. Now, he said that he apologised that he didn't have time to finish my blog in one sitting. Hey, who does? These ones are quite long, and I apologise for that. He thanked me for answering his question. Then he's got a question for next time. Currently, we are playing Pandora Box, and the word conspiracy theory fell into my brain. But then I remembered a news article I saw this week about quantum computing and how they have managed to do something around this subject. Did you read about this? And it appears they are saying that an atom, or something like an atom, can exist in two different places at the same time. Sounds very sci-fi to me. Anyway, that's what came to mind this week. I didn't actually really see a question in there, rather than did I read something and do I have an opinion on it. Obviously, it's a very interesting thing to ask. I didn't see the news article, although it is something that I would probably look out for to stress my brain out and try and figure out what they're talking about. But this atom, or something that can exist in two different places at the same time, I have listened to that theory a number of times, and I was always thought to be told that matter doesn't go anywhere, and it just turns into something else. So we have an equilibrium. It being in two places would mean that you'd think the laws would be the same in two different planes of our existence. So I'm not quite sure how that works. This multiverse and all of that sort of thing is a totally different ball game altogether. We're talking about two planes of existence where something exists in both planes. So I don't really have an opinion other than it's fascinating stuff. I'd love my brain to be up there with these science bods that can debate this. I'm not up there with that. I mean, I just know about, certain laws of physics and so forth, and enough for me to have an argument with somebody that wants to turn around and say that the world is flat and all of that sort of stuff. But when it comes to two planes of existence, an atom being in two places at the same time, I don't know. That really is beyond me. So I'm sorry, but I haven't really come up with a very good answer for you there. But I tell you what, thank you so much for drawing it to my attention, because if I've got time next week, I'll certainly look out that article and see whether I can fathom it out, because I'm hoping that I've got a little bit more time next week. And then we get to Doug Scullery.
His answer to last week's Brain Tease, if you remember, it was never mind the rules, guys. Can't quite remember what it was, but his answer to it, where it was, what's the similarity? The answer to it was Ultimate Play the Game. Still not quite sure where it fits in, where Ultimate Play the Game fits in with that quote. But hey, I do know Ultimate Play the Game, so I have no excuses on why I didn't know it. So you got me. Not that it's not that it's difficult to get me. I am as thick as two short planks, as my mum and father used to say. So, what else has he got to say here from Doug? What are your thoughts on the various writing teams and individuals behind the classic British sitcoms of yesteryear? Any overall winners, or all good at their own particular style? Particular examples are Dick Clement and Ian Flanace for the Likely Lads and Porridge, David Croft and Jimmy Perry for the Dad's Army and Are You Being Served, Eric Chappell for Rising Damp and Only When I Laugh, etc., etc. I don't have the type of brain that thinks are there winners and losers, because their comedy in some of these were collaborations, were of a certain type, but all the time funny. I don't look at things by saying The Likely Lads was better than Are You Being Served, say. Two different types of comedy, two different settings. It's whether it made me laugh or not. I have my luxuries of being able to say this is 95% funny all of the time. I could bring up John Sullivan and Only Fools and Horses and watch them over and over again. And I can even turn you to writers of the Carry On teams, the Carry On films, where we've watched them over and over again. Porridge is definitely one that I always loved, as is Steptoe and Son, The Likely Lads, Porridge, Alvida's Ain't Pet. So I don't look at it from that point of view, Doug. I'm sorry to say. There isn't an overall winner. I have my favourites. And if we're looking at winners, you've got to turn around and put a percentage or something against how funny it was. There's always going to be an odd episode which somebody will argue and say that weren't funny. Didn't see this week, it wasn't as good as last week, and all of that sort of stuff. And you'll always have that. So I don't really have an answer to that other than every single one of your examples is a class act. And if I was to mention some of the ones that I watch, they're class act as well. It's what I'm in the mood to watch, what I find funny. And everybody has a different aspect of what is funny and what is not funny. A lot of it is timing as well. So we have to sort of like bow down and sort of like say we're not worthy to the actors that read the scripts, because they portray that in the funny manner that we laugh at. It's a collaboration, so that's great. So hope that answered your question. Thank you so much, Doug. Robert's Retro Gaming, and he obviously has not been around a little while for me, because he's been very busy doing his own videos. He's back at work. He's a workaholic when it comes to being at work, and when it comes to entertaining us with his videos, for which I'm totally entertained with every week. And he just wanted to clear a few things up in the fact that he'd have loved to have done some of the things that I've been requesting. Yes, Robert, I was disappointed, but I totally understand. So what he was basically saying is he had bought this Atari 50 museum, and he'd bought it for his console, but the console is in his living room and not in his work area where he records. And so for him to do a recording of something for the channel would be very difficult, and I wanted to see the enhanced Yars Revenge, being as I'd done a Yars Recharged video. And I totally get it. I'm forever looking at ways on how I can better a gameplay video that I do. And I've started to look at different capture cards and HDMI splitters and matrices. But I also note that some of the later consoles, especially from, I think around about the PS4 Pro, you can actually record on the actual console itself and use Wi-Fi to transfer the video. Or you can stream it to Twitch or a number of other things. They've really come on in leaps and bounds to try and aid community on the latest consoles. So, but I totally get it, Robert. You're very busy. It'd be very difficult for you to do. It's not the easiest thing in the world when you've got a family that also want to use the console. Totally get it. And thank you very much for even considering what I was saying. It was just something that I'd have liked to have seen, that's all. And especially from a person that I know their opinion would mean something to me. It's all very well going and looking at another YouTube video where I can see this, but it's from a person I don't know. I have no idea what their ethics are, whether they've been bought it, whether they're just saying it for reasons unknown. You get the idea. So thanks for just considering it, Robert. You've got my eternal thanks, and keep up the good work. Your next one, you told me a lot about Akira and how that meant to you. You watched a bit of Quincy. That was great. I loved doing my topic on Quincy last week. And he's got a question, and he says, and I reserve the right to ask this one once or twice a year from now on! Exclamation mark. I love these forceful comments you say to me, Robert, that put me well back in my seat and say, right, you told me there. No, I love you to bits. Are there any upcoming movies or television series you are looking forward to? Yeah, and to be quite honest, it's a valid question, and it's one I get asked a lot. But to be quite honest, in the back years, television when I was at work was everything. So I would go to something like Easy TV, and I would download the American shows before they were being shown over here, and that's because there was always a gap. It could be that it was only a month, but it was a gap, and I wanted to. And America has these seasons where they call it the fall season. So in September they've renewed their shows during the summer and told us what's been cancelled and what's not, and then broadcasted the next season's worth of shows plus the new ones. And I used to go down this huge list that was listed in Variety website or something, and it would say, here's what's cancelled, here's what's new, here's what's returning. And I'd write down the ones that were returning that I really liked and go, right, going to continue that one. And the new ones, oh, so the actor that was cancelled in that show is in this new one, it's about this. Yeah, okay, write that one down, that seems great. Family Guy's renewed, yeah, blah, 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 blah. And then look at the cancelled ones and go, oh, so I don't need to look out for those anymore. That's a shame. Yeah, probably came to a suitable ending. Move on. And that's pretty much what I did. And then I went to Easy TV and I used to download those ones until Britain caught up. And it wasn't too long before Britain caught up. We even if they started a month later, you tended to find that they would end at around about the same time, because we'd have some bank holidays where they'd show a couple of episodes to get caught up, and then the shows ended over there at the same time as they ended over here. That didn't always happen, but it happened more often than not. And now, just like the show that we're watching now, The Last of Us, it's same time. So they show it at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, which is pretty much the time that it's being broadcast in America. And then they show it at a proper slot, which is 9 o'clock on the evening of Monday, which is literally under 24 hours from its broadcast over in the States. So we're never really behind, because we can watch it at the same time, but it would be yawn o'clock in the morning. Or you could just wait and see it at 9 o'clock on the Monday. And these are for the big shows. So I tend to find that I'm now not looking too hard on what I'm looking forward to, because I like the excitement. And Netflix has changed our aspects on how to watch something. If something's on Netflix, it's on at the same time in Britain. Um, I only know of shows that are coming out through adverts. I'm not looking at Variety magazine to see what's been cancelled so much anymore, because I just don't have the time to research it and then also download it and put it onto a drive for me to watch. So there are some exciting shows that I'll be looking forward to. Now that House of the Dragon is finished, I'm looking forward to that being renewed, which we've been told it already has. It was renewed by, I think, about the third episode in of the 10 episodes of that season, so we know it's coming. And there are just certain shows that I really, really like this year. There was one that I mentioned, the Lazarus Project, which came out by Sky. I don't know how it did over in abroad, but I've heard no green light to say that there is a second season of it. I can only imagine that there is. And so if there is a second season of that, I'm really looking forward to it. Other than that, the mainstays of Family Guy and certain shows, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, they always seem to get renewed. I just find it happy that, oh, so that new season started, brilliant, got something to watch. So it's just I don't look out for it anymore, especially when it gets to like season 15. It sort of like becomes the norm. So, and when it comes to movies, well, I'm with you in regards to, do I know what's coming out? I still listen every week to a podcast that tells me what the latest film releases are this week. They have a section that says that they bring a director in to talk about, and they're talking about a film that's going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks. So I don't know really what's coming out in the next 6 months, but I do sort of know what's coming out in the next couple of weeks, the directors, and the expectations of whether it's going to be good or bad. So, you know, last year it's how I learned that Ridley Scott had got 2 films coming out this year, and they mentioned what those 2 films were, and that I was looking forward to those because Ridley Scott is a great director. So I hope that answers your question to everybody, but specifically to Robert, because it's a fantastic question. And movie and TV is quite important to me. But as I go back into work, it becomes less so. It'll be more, what am I going to watch because I'm so tired and I'll probably fall asleep. I'm just getting old, Robert, is all I can say about that. Milfy Swimbuckle. So, again, an apology here because I was just watching Mainmeister's blog, and of course he got the same question. And to be quite honest, I tried to shy away from the questions, and when that did come on, I did go away and make my mum a cuppa, and when he was coming back he was just talking about a load of foods. So I'm hoping that I'm going to keep it still fresh a little bit, but I doubt it, because I've got the gist. It says, this is the question for us all. You've got to survive for 1 year eating and drinking only from stuff you've bought for £30. From but 1 day of spending. Every day, whatever you bought is replaced with the same food or drink item, as if by magic, but the item is always the same, and over the year there is no way to change it. Also, the food and drink you buy has to be ready to be eaten and drunk. There are then, so basically you have to buy from restaurants, food vans, chip shops, pizza shops, ready-made sandwiches, etc. So no cooking can be done, no boiling kettles, no sticking the toaster on and all that sort of stuff. And just so the question doesn't go on forever, you're only allowed 7 different types of food and the 5 different types of drink over the year. For this question, just give a rough estimate of prices and adding up as thing I'll come to too. Simple as that, and remember not to go over the £30. P.S. You might be thinking, why such a low amount of money, but why so few items to buy? The answer is, I'm a complete bastard. Complete git. Yeah, I remember. So I remember now a little bit of why Mainmeister was going down the list. And it's a difficult one because I tell you what, it's the fact that I couldn't do the maths in my head while I'm doing this blog. Just to be perfectly plain with you, I don't necessarily eat an awful lot of takeaways, um, but I do know that they do offers during the week, and you're talking about it during the day. So say I said, right, I wanted a pizza on a Tuesday where I get double pizza. On the Wednesday, I'm going to get the same food, but it's going to cost me more, isn't it? Because that deal's off. All sorts of those things crop to my mind. But let's just talk a few things. Yes, there would be a few luxuries, like sweets and things. Definitely, I'd choose something. Probably in the range of a gelatine type sweet, like a wine gums or something, because they last a little bit and the flavors are nice, and I don't really get bored of those. So we got the sort of sweets out of the way. When it comes to drink, oh my God, yeah. Fresh orange juice is a must. Water is a must. I like Diet Coke, which just reminds me, product placement. Look. Oh, orange juice. But although you give us water, I might still add a water to that because I like fizzy water, like Perrier. And I don't want to buy a gas cylinder, and it looks very much like I can't use microwaves and all that sort of stuff. So I probably would include fizzy water. And then I think I'd have to have a cordial of some sort, and it'd probably be a mixed fruit one. So I don't know whether I've done 5 there or not, but I've definitely added soda, I've definitely added water, I've definitely added cordial, I've definitely added fruit juices. So I think I've done okay there. I do like pizza, so I think I will add pizza to the list. But you say I can't. I have to be ready meal stuff. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to go with a basic pizza. Probably add pepperoni on it, but not much more, because I might buy something as a ready-made sandwich or something that I like, because I do like a ham and cheese sandwich with salad cream. Now, ham is something that I could cut into bits and put on top of my pizza if I wanted a bit of something extra with my pepperoni. So out of the sandwich thing, I think I'd probably have cheese and salad cream. I do like burgers, so I'm going to have to say something similar to a bacon cheeseburger, plain. And then I'm going to have to say, for one of my ready meals, I'm just going to have a bag of salad. I've been eating a little bit more salad just recently. I've been making some potato bakes and been wondering what to have with it. And I've got some lettuce and some cress and things, and I've chopped them up and put them on the side of the plate. And salads can be something that you can have ready-made meal. So I think I might go for one of those salad type ready meals, just because they could go on the side plate with something else, even with a burger or with pizza, and they are ready made. So I'll probably go with that. I'm not sure how many we've gone with now. I'm going to have some fruit, and I love bananas. And then the next meal has got to be a luxury one, and that'd be a roast dinner. So I'd have a delivered roast dinner, and there are carveries that do delivery before anybody starts checking, because the carvery, before it was shut down in my hometown, and it turned into a steakhouse in the end, did do delivery of a roast dinner. So hopefully that's enough of an answer. Yes, I had a bit more foresight. I think I added a little bit more to that, and thanks very much for that one, Milfy. You always make us think. I love that. You're a great bloke. Thank you so much. Keep that up. You really do make me think, really terribly. Bloody hell. Carl Todd, don't fall off your chair in shock. I'm replying in a timely manner, he says. This feedback. He's had a few little issues that are now out of the way. Feedback. Thanks for answering my question. Akira is one of my favourite anime films. Yes, I wish I'd have gone into a little bit more detail. After I started talking about it, I started to think, you didn't go into any of your history, really, did you? You just talked about Akira and went on. Manga, for me, started very, very early, but it was a thing before, but it was something before it was known to me as manga. I don't know if you guys remember this, but I used to watch things like Battle of the Planets with G-Force, and that was manga. And then there was Astro Boy. Not quite sure. There was one where he went underwater and he chewed something called oxygum. All of these are Eastern cartoons for a Western audience. So actually my manga goes back far earlier than Akira, but Akira sticks out because of Barry Norman's interview and the fact that I learnt a little bit about rotoscoping, which is the drawing over the top of a real object and animating it. So basically it looks more fluid and looks more realistic. Akira only used part of that process. It was mostly drawn in the old style way, but you could definitely see with some of the motorbike rides and so forth just how fluid it was, especially when you only caught a glimpse of, say, like the wheel with the boot of the person that was riding the bike and him kick-starting the bike. It was definitely something that looked rotoscoped to me. Question, therefore, from Carl. Not trying to start another food gate, but did you collect any gifts that were given away with food? I'm thinking of things like football cards that are in packets of All-Star crisps and cardboard figures in Weetabix cereal. Yes, as a kiddie, I looked forward to that. In fact, I should think, I'm not a parent, but I should think this would probably resonate with a lot of people that I'm friends with that have got kiddies, that it's a pain in the arse when the kiddie eats more and more of the cereal or sprills the cereal out to get the toy out, because that's what I did. If there was a toy in there, I wanted the toy instantly. I didn't want to wait until I found it halfway or middle of the way through the box. I was pulling that stuff out faster than you could go. I was good at first. It was like, oh, I'll wait. Yeah, I'll just have a bowl of Weetabix or Rice Krispies or whatever. But after about 3 or 4 days, and you got to remember I was in my single digits here, I'd be going, right, I'm having that out. I'm not waiting anymore, I want it. And they were crappy little plastic things. But it's almost like, why are you wishing your life away for something that's no better than out of a Christmas cracker? Later on, I've collected a lot of things. The States are very, very big on movie tie-ins with takeaway places. And I remember going over to the States and there was always the big movie. It could be that Star Trek The Next Generation's next movie was coming out and they'd done a deal with Denny's or whatever, right? And they'd have all the cups with the Enterprise on it. And McDonald's would do their special on Marvel film. So every cup would have Spider-Man on it or the Hulk on it or Iron Man on it. And McDonald's were big for doing a range of things, weren't they? They would do Nintendo ones, like collect all the Nintendo little figurines, and the cups would all have Nintendo splash stuff all over it. I collected, therefore, the ones that were Star Trek, Marvel, and some TV shows, that interested me. Cartoons, and if I was lucky that I was going over to the States, I'd bring a load of them back. I used to be a bit cheeky actually and say, look, I know that these are coming out week by week, but do you happen to have the next couple, because I'm going back to England and I'd certainly love to have the set. And usually there'd be, oh, you can have next week's, but you can't have any further. And then if I was visiting somebody in the state that I'd actually landed in, I'd asked them if they could send them over to me. Wasn't so interested so much in the toy then because I was in my later years, but you know the cups and so forth, they were quite tough plastic, and they're quite handy anyway. The only thing that wasn't great about them was the tops. So later years they got better. So hope that answers your question really, because yes, I did. Other things that I used to collect. Yes, I used to get bazooka gum, and they'd have a little story or cartoon inside them, if I remember rightly. Usually one character, Bazooka Joe, I think it was, and the antics of what was going on with him. Football stickers always came with that sticker gum, and you put the stickers in the album. Don't think there was much in regards to Marvel at this particular time. They did do what they called Pez dispensers over here. Pez wasn't as big a thing as it is over in the States, but I did start to get into collecting Pez dispensers for a short period of time until I found out it's not worth it. Only collect the things that you're nostalgic with, because I never had Pez in 1973. So it's nice to have, but I'd never have the whole Pez collection. So what's the point? Too expensive. But yeah, most of it was with bubblegum, to be quite honest. With trading cards or stickers. And I was big into those stickers for a long time. They were mostly football, but they did do movie ones. So that was great. And thanks for bringing back a happy memory for me there, Carl. I hope that answers your question. Jambon, good old Jambon. Thanks for another entertaining blog. Particularly enjoyed the discussion about the old adventure games. Yes, brilliant. He's also said thanks for reminiscing about the TV shows. He's having a few issues with Columbo. Yes, you can get the DVDs easy, but the Blu-ray's a bit difficult. I've given him some answers to that, on why it's so difficult to get Columbo on Blu-ray. So I hope that helped him a little bit, and why he was having so much difficulty with finding Columbo on Blu-ray. But the question, if that's okay, were you ever in a fan club when you were younger, or did you ever subscribe to any fanzines? If you had to be the president of a fan club or someone who is still alive today, who would you pick? Thanks for a lot. Take care. What a great question. Oh my God. Yes, I have been members of fan clubs. There was always something in the Saturday swap shop or Tiswas where you could join a club or have a badge like Razzmatazz or Runaround and all of that sort of stuff. And I did start my own fan club. It was a movie club. It was to show films on Laserdisc for films that weren't actually at the cinema yet. And it only had about 20, 25 people. And we'd hire out the back of the pub, which was, in my particular instance, it was the Unicorn. And we'd show things like Stargate before it was over in this country. And we'd have a discussion about it on why it was such a good film or such a bad film. And then we'd also go and see it at the cinema. So we weren't taking any money away from watching it at the cinema. And we could see the differences between the home release that was in the States and the cinema release that we were about to get. And that's because of the huge gap between when something was on home media over in the States and when a film is actually shown over here. 6 months or more. Laserdisc, it was out literally after about a month or so. So excuse me, another drink. So yes, I did set up my own club. That was quite good. And of course, Marvel had its own club called FOOM, Friends of Old Marvel, I think that stood for which you got goodie bag of posters, hand drawing sketches, stuff that was coming out. Sometimes there'd be an audio recording on tape. Because it was American, I had to have a friend in America send something to me. This is where the American Air Force Base comes in handy, because we lived in an estate that was part council, part private, and the council area was only over the road from where the private area was. And this American Air Force bloke was in the council house renting out. That's because all of the Air Force was the land was used for families, so they had an overspill, and he basically went over to America at least once or twice a month, and he used to be able to post things for me, and when they got to his house, he'd then bring them back to me. I was a very, very lucky boy, is what I want to say and I'll never forget that guy. And it's how my comic collection started before my father stepped in. So when he had to finally go back to Britain because his tour had finished, he gave me his whole Spider-Man collection, and I do mean the lot. He didn't want to fly it back. He had been bringing them back with him over a period of time, and they were so heavy that he either had to destroy them or find his own money to send them back. And he said, "You can have them, son." And I thought, wow, what a nice thing. And I had a complete run, and it was... when I say a complete run, I had from issue 5 of Amazing Spider-Man up to, at that particular juncture, 130, 1975, yeah. So I was a very lucky lad and had the American comics. And at that particular time, the UK were reprinting Spider-Man stories, and we were so far behind, but we were producing them weekly, so we were catching up rapidly. But it was great because I had the ability to be able to read the American one and look at the British one and see whether they cut anything out. And the big UK comic was black and white, so I could basically put tracing paper over the top and draw the outline, and then I could sort of rub it onto paper so that the pencil line transferred, and then I could colour it in. Absolutely brilliant times. Oh, what wonderful times those were. I wish I could go back sometimes, but they were hard times as well. So I don't want to say too much about that. So yeah, Foom, a film club, yes. Would I want to be a fan club of a particular artist? Well, I was big into William Shatner, I was big into Elton John, I was big into, a number, because I always wanted to be Captain Kirk, or I wanted to be able to play the piano like Elton John, and they all had their own fanzines. But Britain's not the same as America when it comes to fanzines. I didn't see many clubs, and I lived in a small town, so there was nothing that said, right, we're meeting up every Wednesday, and it's in, I don't know, one of the cities that I'm near, Coventry, say, or Birmingham. So I wouldn't be able to drive. My parents would be able to take me, and so therefore it was always a written thing. I hope that answers your question, Jambob. Thank you very much for some of those wonderful memories, especially about the comic ones. Thank you so much. We get to Colin Jones. Okay. Yep, he's bullet pointed again. He's put all his stuff in here. About the balloon, about controllers. Wonderful stuff. Oh, he thanks me all the time, and it's great. And then he gets to his question. Yeah, so thanks, Colin. I won't skirt over some of your stuff. I'm going to read it out. Only ever saw Quincy ME when visiting my nan. Not got too many memories of it, but do know what it was all about. Delboy Kong looks very much like South Park with a nice smiley face. Then Colin does this, and it's great. But I have to remind Colin that I answer the question based on the world that the person who's raised the question lives in. So I was asked a question about um, a world without electricity. And Colin came up with a world without electricity would actually break the fundamental laws of physics and life would cease to exist. But if you were talking tech, then we'd just revert to how it was in the past. Personally think I'd learn carpentry. These are the things that make me laugh, because it's like you've answered the question, but you've just ridiculed the person by saying electricity doesn't exist, it breaks the laws of physics. Love it. Thank you so much, Colin. You made me laugh. My questions for next blog relates to something you mentioned on this blog: boxing games. So, as few of them as there are, what's your favourite 8 and 16-bit boxing games? Oh my god. So I've got to think a bit here. So, I remember a boxing game on the Atari 2600, but it was awful. Absolutely atrocious. I didn't really then play much boxing until I got to the Commodore 64. So I remember Frank Bruno's boxing. There was a fight night one, because I remember the adverts in Zap where they showed these cartoony boxers. And I didn't like that either. But the one that comes to mind will always be Barry McGuigan's boxing. Barry McGuigan's boxing was just... the tune's going in my head now. And that's annoying me, because it stops me thinking about the other boxing games that were out. Let me try and think. Oh, there was a very early one, a Sierra boxing game that came on disc. Now, I don't think it was released in this country. I remember getting that from a bulletin board off of the American Air Force Base. It was called Sierra Boxing, or Sierra Championship Boxing. Very early. We're talking possibly launch of the 64. If not, it was 1983. So it was either 82 or 83. I do remember... Bangkok Nights. Yeah. And some of those Thai boxing ones. And then there were a couple of ones that I saw only through emulation, because you got to remember that when I had my 64, it was probably for the longest period of time for a computer, because I had it from 82 till about 86, 87. But I had my A1000 from 1985. It was a day one release. And that went on into the 90s, but only shortly after the 90s, because my first PC was a 386SX. So you can easily look up the year that chip came out. That was my first computer. So you can see the year there. So when it gets to the 16-bit era, there was probably some C64 and some Amiga crossover, because I think Bangkok Nights was on the Amiga. I remember Cinemaware did TV Sports Boxing. That comes to mind, because I did buy a lot of Cinemaware stuff, and I was well into their Cinemaware games, not so much the sports games, but I even bought TV Sports Football, even though I didn't know so much about American football. But a TV Sports Boxing comes to mind. And that had an unusual angle. If I remember rightly, it was waist high with the ring ropes shown, and it sort of twirled round with, you see in the top side view of the boxers. Yeah. I think there was a couple of budget ones. I think there was one called The Champ. Now, some things that I didn't get into that I'd love to have done is a boxing manager game. And this is where I was talking last week that there's two games that have come out. One's called Undisputed, which is like Fight Night. And then there is a boxing manager, which is done with pixel art. And I said, I haven't had a boxing manager. I've done Formula One management. I've done football management. I've done management of a software company. I haven't done a boxing manager one. And I'm sort of like semi-itching to buy the $10.99 game just to say that I've had a boxing manager game. But would I like it? I'm still thinking, and I'm in an iron about that. But I hope that's answered your question. A couple of titles there. I'm sure there's a lot. I'm sure I've destroyed a lot, but there was a lot of boxing games on consoles. I saw Evander Holyfield boxing. There was Nintendo's Punch Out, which is a bit like Frank Bruno's boxing that I played in the arcades. You already know in my gaming history that I did Ring King. That's a wonderful boxing game, but because it's cartoony and fast action, there's no finesse to it. But I really got into the 360s, one of the 360s launch titles, which was Fight Night, because you not only moved with the left analog controller where you could move around the ring, but you did your jabs by just flicking the right analog. Stiff jab out, roll round and up for a hook. I can remember it now, and I remember seeing the faces when you did a knockout punch. You saw the side of the face, the punch come in, and the jaw and spittle come out the other side. I'm just disgusted. I am Colin. Colin, wonderful. Thank you so much for your question. David's retro games played badly. Lovely guy. I just started to watch his channel. He talked about Akira. He liked the fact I answered his question. He hates Twiglets. He's really enjoying The Last of Us. Yep, Bray. He's rewatching Deadwood at the moment. What a class choice. Deadwood, brilliant. What was it, 3 or 4 seasons of that? Got it on Blu-ray. Watch it every 7 months or so. Fantastic show. No real question. He just talked about Free Pines on Amazon. It's a very good whodunit, and I've been watching it. You'd have to go back a little bit for David, because I actually mentioned Free Pines as a TV show on Netflix, I think it is, or is it Prime? The week it came out, they'd got a couple of episodes out. It's Edward Molina, isn't it? Yeah. Doing some murder mysteries near a forest, while it was called Free Pines. Loved it. Haven't gone back to it. Want to watch it a bit. Go back to it. But what happened was it came out at a time where all these other shows like House of the Dragon was coming out, so it sort of got buried a little bit. And that's about it question-wise, guys. Thank you so much for those. And we get towards the end. So what have I watched this week? So I've watched This Week in Retro, where they were talking about role-playing games and 3DFX. So I really like this one this week, guys, because not only is role-playing games something that I go back to an awful lot because it's part of my youth, but the 3DFX cards I've talked already in my channel before, where I said I had a Power VR and my friend had a 3DFX. And eventually we'd sort of like, not try and beat each other, but it would always be, that's the better card, I think you ought to swap that out, and I'd buy a different sound card and they'd eventually swap their sound card out about a bit. So that was great. Techmoan went back and did a revisit to an old vinyl record system called the Coturn CT-01, and he did it because there's a very big backstory to his first initial review of that device. And he'd done just recently the Soundburger. The Soundburger is a portable vinyl player. So that definitely is worth a watch, because you learn so much. I mean, I didn't know there were meetings out there that that measured the wow and pop fluctuations of vinyl records from the stylus, and that you could measure the stylus pressure with a proper sort of like scale that you actually attach to an electrical device. So you put the stylus down and it tells you how many ounces of pressure there is and all that sort of stuff. Very interesting. It's got a heck of a lot of equipment. Then we get to RMC. Now I don't really, when it comes to This Week in Retro, it's my mainstay. I don't really watch an awful lot of RMC, but he did an interview with Rebecca Heinemann, or commonly known as Berger. It's a 2-hour interview. I was engrossed from start to finish, because what I didn't realise is how much Rebecca has shaped my life. She did some Atari 2600 games, moved into Commodore 64 land and Amiga land, and then started doing stuff for the 3DO, and then started doing stuff for PC, and still to this day. And if I was to mention some of the titles, Bard's Tale, remember that? Bard's Tale? Taz Time in Tone Town, anybody remember that? So lots of it was adventure at the beginning, but what she was trying to explain is that she won the very first arcade tournament in the world. So Atari brought out a tournament to play Space Invaders in the year that the cartridge was brought out, and she won it. And she copied Atari games using her own handmade ROM dumper. She ran away from home an awful lot. She stayed with friends. It's how she learned about the Apple. She designed everything on the Apple. Even the Bard's Tale was designed on an Apple II, and I don't know whether she said it was an Apple II or an Apple II GS. I think it was a GS. And all the way through the development cycle of all of these games that she's done was mostly done on Apple. And all she had to do, therefore, was just change the graphics, some scripting. The code was shared. Brilliant. 2 hours engrossed. The way to do an interview for that one, for definite. Then I watched, because I was into my fighting this week, I did watch a documentary about the super fight between Muhammad Ali and Rocky Marciano. Now, anybody who knows their boxing knows that these two fighters could never fight together. Although it nearly happened. Rocky Marciano had retired 8 years previous. Cassius Clay or Muhammad Ali couldn't fight because he had his license revoked because of the Vietnam War. So they got together and did this computer simulation. The computer would decide who would win. They then were paid to do some shadow boxing between each other, like some play acting boxing, for which the outcome was not known. So they filmed 2 endings, and nobody knew what the winner would be. It was shown in the cinemas. There was a different ending in Europe than there was in America. Muhammad Ali tried to get it banned at one point, not because he was upset about the ending. I think it was about how it was sold to him, how it was going to be. He thought that it was going to be a proper computer simulated thing. And this is a documentary about it, and they show you the remaining film cans of the boxing between Rocky and Muhammad Ali. And that's because Warner Brothers, I think is the producers of it, destroyed the films after they were shown. They recalled them or destroyed them, and I don't think there is a full reel of it out there anymore. So that was very good. And then this week I've been watching lots of videos on Steam, because this week it's been Steam Next Fest. I told you about it last week that I was interested in 2 games, and they were Infection Free Zone and Sons of Valhalla. And from watching a video of this week, I also got into a game called Broken Arrow. Now, all 3 were demos. You could download them all up until the end of today. And I was going to do some videos of them, but I never got round to doing it. Infection Free Zone didn't disappoint me, but did, because the demo, they took away Google Maps. Now, if you can imagine a zombie game like Last of Us in isometric 3D, and you could actually use Google Maps to look at your back street, and it would turn it into an isometric 3D map, and you had to survive a zombie horde, you'd see how excited I was. But they only supplied 4 maps, and the Google part was taken out of it, and that's because it's a demo. I had to understand it's a demo, and I went, oh, I'm so disappointed. And I'd watched so many videos of it with Google Maps in through some of these early Kickstarters that I was looking forward to it, but I've watched it so much I didn't need to play it. Do you see what I mean? So I played about an hour and a half of it, got the gist of it, liked the mechanic of it, could see the bugs that they need to iron out, gave them my feedback on it, and moved on. Sons of Valhalla is a pixel art type game where it's a base building game on a horizontal plane. So you walk along, there'll be an area where it says build here, you build here, and it'll be like a woodcutter or whatever it was. And you then built turrets and all that sort of stuff. It's set in the Viking era, and you had to move along the plane and then ransack or pillage a village as it came along. And you would just, after you took over that village and captured the flag, you built turrets there and built their economy up, and you keep moving on ad infinitum. Very interesting game. It sounds repetitive, but it isn't. It only started to become repetitive after I looked at my watch and it said, "Oh my God, you've been playing 3 hours." Didn't know the 3 hours had gone. Great. Broken Arrow. Now we're talking a game. Now this, you need to have a killer PC to run. My God, it run like a chug on mine until I put the geometry of the game to high rather than max, ultra, and the rest of it. So I'm high now is probably medium. But it still looks gorgeous, and it's sort of like Master and Commander. It's a battle zone where you control an army. You can see the islands, and there's no base building or anything. They come in through landing by helicopter, bringing boats in, and then your tanks patrol the streets, and you've got to slowly take over the whole of the land. Brilliant. Definitely get that. And that's what I watched on YouTube. Now, when it comes to your videos, I watched 20th Century do his live stream of Stormlord 2, and he did a long play of Quasimodo on the C64. I hadn't played Quasimodo in years. It was really fun watching him do that. Brilliant. Do go watch 20th Century. LFC did his blog, as he said he was going to, and he did his Commodore 64 collection. In the end, I said it was going to be his PlayStation, but he hadn't decided. He did his C64 collection. Very nice collection as well. Even brought in some memories of some of the games. So that was great. Down the rabbit hole, never disappoints. He started to talk about slums on spaceships. So he came up with a theory. Would space stations have slum areas like we have slum areas of our shanty towns and so forth? For which I gave him, he compared it to a film that was called Downsizing, where we shrink ourselves down because the population growth is so high. We shrink ourselves down to doll size. And I pointed out another film called Elysium, where shantytowns is now the whole of the earth, and the people that have got money live up in space stations just outside of Earth's orbit. You know, just it orbits the Earth. Sorry. And I mentioned to him that even if you did have a space station that had slum areas, it's got to be maintained for air seals and so forth. You'd think it would be worth more dismantling it, taking the metal apart and then building something new there because of entropy, really. So that was interesting. David Retro Games Played Badly wanted to show off some of his collection that he'd picked up from Doncaster this week, and he had a sad announcement to him that a friend of his had recently died, and he showed him some of the things that they'd done together, and a little toy that was given to him, which is now one of his possessions that he'll treasure and put on his shelves. Very nice thing for him to do. Robert's Retro Gaming, you know about Robert, I just talked about him a bit earlier. He did a Temple of Apshai type game on the Atari, which brought back memories of me playing the Amiga. I had played the C64 version, but I remember the C64 version being on disc and clunky as hell. When the Amiga version came out, it didn't do anything graphic-wise, but the menu system was right at the top, so you didn't have to think about the keyboard's commands so much, which there were a plethora of them. You had to put yourself into a fight stance. There was find, there was search, there was keys, there was, to open doors, there was spells.
all had an individual key. On the Amiga, it was just drop-down box. So easy. That brought back a lot of memories. Ponder did his blog, absolutely wonderful. Always love his blog. His opinions mean an awful lot to me. He was talking about how he might expand his blogs from now on. I hope he does do some of those things. Definitely love what you guys do. It's not like it's a competition about how my blog is done. It's more about I get to know a little bit more about you guys rather than, you know, like a diary entry. So looking forward to that. And then of course my old mate Meister, he did his live waffle this Friday. He got a couple of my questions in. Why he couldn't find them, I don't know. He kept going back and forth. Made me laugh. It was like, now I'm going to find Downboy's question. Then he'll answer somebody else's question. Then he'll go, can't remember what I was looking for. Oh yeah, Dell's question. Where you put it, Dell? It's in last week's, mate. God's sake. And I could have copied and pasted it into the chat, but then there were other people's questions that he needed to read. It was funny as anything. Oh, it made me laugh. But he did a video of Missile Command and Krakow. Definitely go and watch that, guys. Mainmeister's opinion do mirror my own. They won't mirror it all the time with you, but he goes out of his way to show all the different versions, what he likes about them, what he doesn't like about them. Doesn't let nostalgia get in his way. It may well be that the 64 was the one he played it on, but he's not shy to turn around and say, do you know what, Amstrad 1 trumps this every time. Jesus. Even though he didn't have an Amstrad at the time. Brilliant guy. Gotta watch his stuff. And that pretty much, I think, brings it to the end. I watched The Last of Us this week, and the nice thing about The Last of Us is that, as I was telling you before, where it's usually once a week, they showed episode 5, which shouldn't be shown until 2 in the morning tomorrow. They showed it on Friday. I watched it Saturday, so I've actually seen episode 5 already. I watched it because Saturday's telly was absolutely awful. And then, because Russell T Davies is coming back to Doctor Who, his last drama documentary is being broadcast at the moment on a new streaming channel called ITVX, which is a non-subscription channel. It's got adverts in it if you don't subscribe. He's done a show called Nolly, which is actually about Noel Gordon. And if you don't know who Noel Gordon is, then I don't blame you. It's just you're not of an era that I come from, and that's the 60s and 70s, and a show called Crossroads. So Nolly is about Noel Gordon, who starred in Crossroads and so many other things, and Russell D Davies has dramatised it with one of my favourite actresses, Helena Bonham Carter, who's been in a lot of Tim Burton films because they were married. Go figure. So I watched it, and he hasn't changed too much at all, Russell T Davies. I think Doctor Who might be coming back onto a better road than it's been on the last 4 years. Well, it couldn't get worse, could it? Anyway, then we come to my stuff. So I did a video of Refender, which is a reimagining of Defender, but it's more a love letter to it because they didn't change too much of it. Currently it's sitting there with quite a few views, and most people are in the same opinion of me. This is how you renew a game that's old. In other words, don't change the world, change the graphics a little bit, add your own splash of paint here and there, but keep the game's quintessential core as it is. That's all we want. It's just that because we've played these games since the late 70s, early 80s, we now want a little bit different eye candy because we're so familiar with the vector lines and the chunky sprites and so forth. All we're looking for is a bit of finesse. And then there's my blog, and that's about it. Yeah. So what did I get this week? Just a wrap up. Steel Book of Thor Ragnarok has turned up. Not my favourite Thor film. Adds a bit of comedy to it. Not too bad.
this came out earlier this year. Marvel's Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Bit of a long film. So sad not to see the Black Panther in it, because obviously the actor died of cancer a year or so back now. But it's nice that they kept the title and moved things forward, because his nation still survives, and there has to be a new Black Panther because of the bloodline. So interesting. Then we've got the Iron Man Free Steel book. I'm not sure if I showed that last year, but it's one of the Mondo ones, which is why I've got it. And then this finally arrived from America. It doesn't bother me because 4K is not region protected, only the Blu-ray is. Brian De Palma's Blowout with John Travolta and Nancy Allen. If you've never seen that film, oh my God, go out there and watch it now. It's definitely a crime story set around a person who does sound engineering in films. So he goes out there recording sound effects like birds calling and that at night, owls, all those interesting things that we get in our TV. And he recorded a crime, and then tried to get that crime to justice. The ending is quite controversial. Yeah, I would say that was the word to use. Definitely a film to watch. It is of its time, early 80s. But Nancy Allen and John Travolta stand out in this very much. This is a Criterion collection, so it's one of the special editions with all the extras. It's a 4K transfer, so it's never going to look any better than it probably does with this one. And that concludes my blog. Thank you so much, guys. Still a lengthy one, even without a topic, but I give you what I say in all of my meetings when I end. I said, I'm going to give you your time back to you now, and hopefully you can utilize that 10 minutes that our meeting was scheduled for. That's how I end all my meetings. It's brilliant. Thank you so much. It's always a salute. I look forward to reading your comments this week, and next week is the 52nd 1 year anniversary. Oh my God. Will I do something special? Who knows? I go back to work this week. Maybe it will be the end. No, it won't be the end. See you guys around. Salute. Goodbye.